Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first ever Friendly Pharmacy 5 book club featuring the book Gut Logic by Graham Mackenzie with contributions from Dragana Skokovic-Sunjic and Lindsay Dixon. I'm your host, Lindsay Dixon, and I'm just so glad that you could join us live today. Um, just as everyone comes in, if you're just dropping in for the live, let us know where you're from. Let us know if you are a subscriber to the channel or what platform we are streaming across. I think 4 or 5 different platforms today live. And so let us know where you're coming in from, both geographically and what platform you're on. And thank you so much for joining us. So I had this idea earlier this year as I was reading a book about health, and I thought, you know, there's so many great health books out there that are evidence-based, like this one, like Gut Logic. Wouldn't it be nice to have access to the authors of these books and to get the insights, to get further insights beyond what the book can give, and even to have access to the authors themselves? And actually, I just recently, actually today, we launched the interview with Dr. Ids, who recently launched his book, Saturated Facts. And he initially had 80,000 words written for his book, and he had to condense that down to 50,000. And these authors, they really do have a lot to say. And so what I wanted to do for the first book club was reach out to Graham Mackenzie, who is a pharmacist from Canada. This is actually his second book, Gut Logic. His first book is called Healthy Logic, and we'll have links to that in the description of this video once the recording is posted. So this is Graham's second book, and I wanted to reach out to him because I did help collaborate on this book, though I didn't receive any funds or anything from that. But I just thought it would be good to shed some light on the evidence as far as gut health goes, because there is just so much misinformation out there as far as gut health goes. I mean, all you need to do is really go onto Google and start searching or YouTube even, and start searching on the topic of gut health, and you will find 5 ways to repair a leaky gut, and this is bad for your gut and this is good for your gut. And how do you really decipher what is true and what is not, right? So I wanted to launch this book club, and thankfully Graham and Dragana are both here with us today to launch these evidence-based sessions on gut health featuring this book. So we're not trying to sell you the book, though if you want to buy it and company along this journey with us, you're certainly welcome to. But what we really want to do here is clarify the evidence on this new emerging field of gut health. And so I want to introduce to you Graham Mackenzie and Dragana Skokovic-Sunjic. Thank you both for being here with us today.
Hi, Lindsay.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for joining us. And both Graham and Dragana will be speaking somewhat today on some of their specific areas of expertise. And I'm going to get into that in a minute. Before we get into that, I wanted to go through a few housekeeping items. And again, if you're just joining us, thank you so much for joining us. Let us know where you're from in the comments. Feel free to leave comments. We don't have an official Q&A today, but every session that we do, these will be weekly live sessions. There will be a Q&A, with the exception of this first one because it's just our launch day. But if you want to leave questions in there, feel free. Some people will do that anyways. At the end of each session, Graham has graciously offered to do a book giveaway. So if you do leave a comment, someone from the comment section will be receiving a free Gut Logic book today. So thank you, Graham, so much for that. Also, when we do the Q&As in future sessions, if you would like a transcript of the Q&As, you can certainly receive those if you sign up for our newsletter, and you can do that via our website, which is www.friendlypharmacy5.com. So it'll come up just a few seconds after you go onto the website. So you don't need to do that now. I'll remind you again at the end. But that will give you access to the transcripts from the Q&As. We do have other guests joining us. So we have a physician from Mayo Clinic and another physician from Duke University. These are experts in gut health who will be joining us, and we're just thrilled for that. So I wanted to go into a little bit of I already explained a little bit about why I chose the topic of gut health because of the wealth of misinformation, also the incredible interest in this topic. I actually was researching for this session today, and I found out that gut health and the microbiome is actually one of the most searched topics in the country of Australia, and I believe followed by Singapore or something like that. When you start to search for topics on gut health, there really is just so much out there. But when we talk about the microbiome, what does that actually mean? And so I just wanted to start this session by defining what is the microbiome anyways. And I chose a portion just out of the Gut Logic book on page 16, where Graham explains, he says, it's important to note that the microbiome, which represents the normal flora of bacteria in our body, is not just restricted to the gut. Although most research is done on the gut microbiome, the entire body is involved with its own microbiome in various compartments. For example, the skin is alive with all types of organisms and not just bacteria. Various areas of the body harbor different communities of bacteria. Males and females are also different when it comes to bacteria and their microbiomes. Those living in different climates, different ages, and using different cleaning products and lifestyle choices all create a microbiome on the skin as individual as you are. And so, this concept of the microbiome is really something that is unique. It is something that I think that we can't just put a label on it, right? Or just say that a certain person, you have a microbiome this way because you're from this type of this country or something like that, right? Also, we know that the flora, say, of the respiratory system is different than the flora of the mouth, right? And so this topic is really, really complex, and it is a new and an emerging area of science. And so let me tell you what you won't get from these sessions, okay? You are not going to get an easy fix or a band-aid fix for your leaky gut. What you are going to get is you are going to get evidence-based strategies. We're going to give you studies. We're going to answer your questions, but everything is going to be evidence-based. There's going to be no fluff here. We're not going to try to sell you any products or anything like that. These are evidence-based sessions. And so I hope that you can really dig into the literature with us, dig into the information that is current. And there will be times when we don't have the answer to your question because this is such a complex topic. So I just wanted to kind of say that right out of the gate. All of that being said, I want to get to our guests who are giving of their time today. And I'm going to first speak with Graham Mackenzie. So Graham Mackenzie, he is the primary author of the book Gut Logic. And I just want to tell you a little bit about Graham before I ask him some questions about the book and about gut health in general. So Graham graduated from Dalhousie University College of Pharmacy in 1993, obtaining his chemistry degree from St. FX University. Did I say that right, Graham?
Yeah, so St. FX came first. I graduated there in 89, and then 93 at Dal was pharmacy.
Perfect. Graham has worked at the same pharmacy in Baddeck, Nova Scotia ever since, and recently sold his pharmacy after owning it for 20 years. During that time, he initiated and developed a thriving compounding lab in the pharmacy. He is the author of Healthy Logic and Gut Logic, and he is a member of the Nova Scotia College of Pharmacists and the Nova Scotia Pharmacy Association. He is a frequent guest on CBC Radio, iMaritime Noon in Halifax, and has a passion for pharmacy education in both public and the health community. Graham has a keen interest in pharmacist involvement in scientific studies. Most recently, he spearheaded and co-authored a published study on the permeation through the skin of active pharmaceutical ingredients for pain relief in various transdermal bases. And I actually interviewed Graham on the work that he's done in compounding and specifically on the formulations that he has developed for pain on the channel. And so if you go into our interviews, you can see my interview with Graham on that specific topic. Previous to that, he co-authored a study on the withdrawal of sugar-sweetened beverages from his pharmacy in Baddeck, Nova Scotia, and the impact it had on the community's purchasing of these beverages afterwards. Welcome again to the channel, Graham Mackenzie.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. So, Graham, what inspired you to write the book, Gut Logic?
Well, after Healthy Logic, there was another title that we were looking for, and I think as pharmacists we know how a topic, let's say out front like probiotics, can just have a lot of strange information that comes out, particularly online, and people making a lot of money selling a lot of products that in that supplement section that maybe aren't proven. So I just think that probiotics are getting a bit of a bad rap. There was a lot of evidence as shown by Dragana's website, aeprobio.com. And I think not only for the public, for the medical community as well, that it was important to have a book that just briefly outlined the evidence that was there for certain conditions and conditions where there wasn't a lot of information showing that they worked. So when I met up with you two guys, amazing educators, and Dragana with her lifelong work with probiotics, it was just a no-brainer, and it really, I think, it developed into a very informative book. You can really get a lot of misinformation, as you said, online, and I hope this book helped to clear that up.
Definitely, and the book is a good resource, I think for people. Your Healthy Logic book as well, like that one was phenomenal, right? But I think it's something
Thank
that's needed. And Dragana is going to speak about probiotics specifically because my goodness, even as a pharmacist, when we look at the shelf of probiotics, right? Before Dragana had written the clinical guide to probiotics, it was like, how do you recommend the best thing for your patient, right?
you.
And now we know that people are really interested in gut health and they want to know. And as healthcare professionals, we want to know, right? We want to be able to make the best recommendation and be on top of the best evidence, right? So I
Right.
think it certainly fills a gap. Graham, what are some of the maybe most common or the misconceptions that have stood out to you, maybe from your patients or even from conversations about gut health? That people have that you maybe tried to address in the book?
Well, you brought up the topic of leaky gut. So there's a proven symptom of leaky gut. And I think one thing that gets a little overblown would be, what does leaky gut do downstream? Does it cause all of these diseases that people claim it does? And how important is it to stop leaky gut to prevent long-term diseases? And really, that kind of evidence isn't there. We know that leaky gut happens, and it makes for a gut that's not functioning as well. But we have to be careful not to extrapolate information too much. And there was earlier this year, I was invited by the Dalhousie University Clinical Webinar Series for their continuing professional development and medical education to speak on this topic. And I was really amazed by how well it was received. I was finally got the comments back from that, from all of the 75 people that attended. And people were just amazed how much information there was out there on how probiotics work and the evidence that shows that they will work, specific probiotics for specific conditions. And when you're doing a talk on that, you're always trying to not throw out brand names, but it becomes very important to actually give the specific brand name for the specific condition that it's been tested for. And yeah, it was pretty well received. Most people thought, the recommendation was to give probiotics even if you didn't need them, which we all know there's not much point of taking a probiotic if you have no real reason to take it. And there was a large number of people in that comment section that we're going to now regularly use the aeprobio.com site for references, as I do every day at work.
Yeah, and the AE Probio website is something that Dragana I'm sure she will mention
Yeah,
as well. But it's an incredible resource and it's completely free. So we're not trying to push anything
yeah,
on you here, right?
exactly.
But rather than just blindly take something, because I think there's so much information out there saying, oh, probiotics and yogurt and
Mhm.
fermented foods, and it doesn't really matter. It really does matter, right? The strain matters and the indication matters, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a bit of what we're trying to clarify with these sessions as well.
And also, Too, I would like to say that the sometimes the misconception is what the actual build of your microbiota is, and that the focus is more on what you're putting in, what product is actually used for what condition, and the signature of your microbiome is perhaps less important than actually what supplement you're using to use for a certain condition, like let's say inflammatory bowel disease.
Yeah, definitely. And so the indication, right,
Mhm.
is what is really, really important there.
Yeah.
So Graham, another thing that I wanted to ask you about in the book that I think is really, really important that we establish what right from the forefront here is you talk about the different levels of evidence that you refer to throughout the book. And you talk about level 1, level 2, and level 3 evidence. And can you just kind of explain that to us? I know it might be a little bit difficult with this setting
Yeah.
here, right? But just explain how, just set us up to kind of understand how that works, because that will be a bit of a theme as we go throughout these sessions, right?
Yeah, and this is a really important part of that site as well. So, in scientific studies, we have meta-analysis, systematic reviews, randomized control trials, cohort studies, case control, cross-sectional studies. But with the AE ProBio site, there are simple three levels of evidence. And the first level of evidence, level one, is evidence obtained from at least one appropriately designed trial. So this means that there's randomization and there's blinding, so that the people that are actually doing the study don't know who's getting the medication or the probiotic, and even the person that's in the study doesn't know if they're getting the probiotic or a placebo. Um, that's the highest level of evidence we have, and references are all given for those when they're in the AE Probio site. Level two is still well designed control studies, but they just don't have randomization. So we don't have a group of people that we just randomly split into two. And there are a lot of different studies that we use regularly in medicine that this type of study would be used for. Level one is, of course, going to be the strongest as far as making a recommendation, and a level three evidence is a respected authority based on clinical experience, reports from expert committees, that type of thing, which is something that we all use in our pharmacy practice every single day when we're there. Sometimes you just don't have a flat out randomized controlled study, so you use whatever you can.
That's a great overview. Thank you very much for that, Graham. What are you most looking forward to, I guess, in these sessions for yourself?
Well, actually, I'm looking forward to the speakers that you have coming up because they're fairly. I don't think we name them by name here, but there are some really good speakers that we've talked about that are going to be coming and sharing their knowledge on probiotic and on gut health in general, and that's going to be why I'm going to be tuning in for the most part. Dragana is, of course, always very educational in her overview of probiotics. So anybody that's looking for a reason to join in, you're really going to learn a lot when it comes to gut health overall.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get to Dragana in just a moment. So if you're just joining us, this is our first ever session of the Friendly Pharmacy 5 book club where we're featuring the book Gut Logic. If you're just joining us, or if you haven't commented yet, let us know where you're from, what you're hoping to learn from these sessions. We're going to be doing live weekly sessions on Saturday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We do have some incredible guests coming on, which we've not announced their names yet, but they are coming on. But today we have the authors of the book with us, right? And so we will be speaking with Dragana in a minute. But I would just want to let you know of some of the topics that we're going to be covering in these sessions. So we're going to be talking about what makes a gut unhealthy, gut health and mental health. We'll be addressing the gut-brain axis. We're going to talk about irritable bowel syndrome, and we have a special guest speaker to speak specifically about that. We're going to address gut health and cholesterol, gut health and weight gain, gut health and fermented foods, the importance of fiber. There's just a lot of different things that we've got prepared for you. And also, of course, we're going to address the topic of probiotics as well. So if you're just joining us, thank you so much for joining us for our first session here. And I'd like to introduce the second author of the book. So Dragana Skokovic-Sunjic is with us today. And Dragana is also the author of the Clinical Guide to Probiotics, which is a free resource for the public and for healthcare professionals. So Dragana, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for letting me speak about my favorite topic, probiotics.
Absolutely. And Dragana, I've also interviewed Dragana. And so if you would like to see her interview where we debunk a lot of common myths about probiotics, and she talks about a lot of the evidence for probiotics, you can check that out on the channel under my interviews playlist. She was also featured in our recent travel health video where she talks about probiotics and the evidence for the use of probiotics for travel health, specifically for gut health. Dragana, I'm just going to interview you more formally now so people know exactly who you are. I'm a little bit excited because it's just so nice to have you guys with us. So Dragana Skokovic-Sunjic is a clinical pharmacist and Menopause Society certified practitioner. She practices in a primary care setting with the Hamilton Family Health Team. In addition to her collaborative clinical practice, she is a leader in knowledge mobilization for probiotics worldwide. Dragana speaks on stages all across the world on the topic of probiotics. She translates scientific research in this field and has authored, as I said, the Clinical Guide to Probiotics, which is available in Canada, as well as the Clinical Guide to Probiotic Products available in the United States. This has been published since 2008. This is a practical clinical tool that is peer-reviewed and updated annually to reflect the latest evidence. And again, this is free of charge. We're not trying to sell you anything here. And it's on the AE ProBio website. Dragana's objective is to enable clinicians and patients to recognize if and when probiotic therapy is necessary and what particular strains would be most appropriate for the desired outcome. Dragana's efforts in probiotic education led to the establishment of the Alliance for Education on Probiotics in 2015. AE ProBio supports publishing the Clinical Guide to the Probiotics products and coordinates the preparation and delivery of various educational tools designed for healthcare professionals and consumers. So we have this wonderful person, Dragana, with us today. Dragana, I just have a few questions for you. First of all, thank you so much for joining these sessions. It's wonderful to have you with us. You do so much work on this topic, and you do speak on stages worldwide. When you do speak to people, I'm sure you get a lot of questions. What are some of the most common questions or even misconceptions that you have come across in your practice?
So again, thank you again for having me. And I do speak at the conferences and online and everything else, but I do enjoy the most speaking with my patients. I work in a primary care, so I do see patients in a family practice. So they come to see the family doctor for different reasons. And when I ask, and I always ask, what medications they take and what supplements they take, 95% of them or more are taking probiotics. And when I ask what kind and what for, not many of them know what they're taking or why they are taking it. So, being a pharmacist, as you and Graham are, you know how we are trained. We are trained to, first of all, look at the evidence, and you keep saying evidence based, which I love. So, we have to see the evidence for specific intervention. We have to know what we are taking, how much, and why. And this is one of the roles that pharmacists absolutely love to do. We have to assess your medications and over-the-counter medications such as probiotics. So that, the issue and question I mentioned earlier, as a pharmacist, anybody can get overwhelmed when you go to the store and see what is on the shelf. The selection is overpowering. And online, if you try to buy something, there are thousands, millions of products out there. Which one do you take? Is it more the merrier, or is it refrigerated, or all different kinds of things are questions. And this is one of the reasons why in 2008, I have started with a group of colleagues to prepare and produce this clinical guide to probiotic products. I have to say in 2008, this clinical guide was only one page. Now we have 24 pages and 300 references. So we came from 9 references and one page to many more. And the reason is, again, because research is growing and exponentially, and also the offering on what is available, what people can buy, it's exploding. And the push for the marketing and making people actually believe they have to take probiotics is really overwhelming.
Yeah, it is really overwhelming, and that's something I wanted to ask you about. I think that we did address this maybe in my interview with you, but is it quite easy for companies to put a probiotic out there? Like, do they have to have much evidence when they put a probiotic out there? And has it been difficult for you as the author to the clinical guide to keep up with this incredible amount of products and maybe a lack of evidence?
So first of all, to sell something as a probiotic globally, in Canada or US or in Europe, you have to show there are specific requirements for something to be a probiotic. Because think about it, probiotics are live bacteria. And thinking back 50 years ago, we were killing all live bacteria that are kind of around us to prevent infection. So we had antibiotics to kill bacteria. Now we are taking bacteria in. So you have to make sure that this bacteria is helpful. It can respond to antibiotics. It has to be specific genetic makeup. We have to really know what kind of bacteria is in that product to be a probiotic. To be called probiotic by definition, it has to show benefit for our health. That is definition of probiotic. And some companies will actually go even a step further and say apply in the countries that allow these claims to say this particular probiotic can actually be helpful maybe for IBS or for colics in babies or migraines or something. And then sometimes they would be allowed to actually put those claims on the label. So again, there are different regulations in different countries. And as you mentioned, we have the Canadian guide and US guide, and we are talking with the experts in UK and in Europe to expanding the guide in Europe and UK because the need has been identified.
Mhm, mhm. And, if you're just joining us, this is Dragana Skokovic-Sunjic. She is the author of the Clinical Guide to Probiotics, and she is also a co-author of Gut Logic, which is the book that we're featuring for these there we go, for these sessions over the coming weeks. So Dragana, I've asked you these questions before, but we're live here, and I love it when you answer these questions because we always get such good responses. Also, if you're listening in right now, leave us a comment. Let us know where you're from or what you'd like to learn about gut health, because we are going to do a giveaway at the end. Someone is going to get a free Gut Logic book here. So Dragana, could you just clarify for us yogurt? Because people think that any kind of yogurt or most yogurts actually have probiotics in them. So what is one of the most common misconceptions about yogurt when it comes to probiotics?
First of all, I would say yogurt is excellent food. Absolutely should be part of the balanced diet. We recently have some, approved kind of claims that ingesting yogurt daily is actually helpful with the diabetes prevention. So yogurt gives you great calcium, great protein, very easily digest. So absolutely always love yogurt. However, to ferment milk and to make yogurt, there are live bacteria, a few different strains that are used commercially or at home to ferment milk and make yogurt. Commercially, most of the time, that yogurt, the final product, is exposed to heat to stabilize it, to actually stop fermentation, and to make it last longer on the shelf. Some of the live bacteria might survive, but we don't know how much. So most yogurts will actually not have enough live bacteria to satisfy definition of probiotic. By definition, probiotic has to have enough of the live bacteria and also has to have shown benefit for a health of the people ingesting it. There are some yogurts or fermented milk products that actually have different strains added after fermentation process is done. And those products are actually probiotic supplements. Even though they look like yogurt, they taste like yogurt, but they have added bacteria to it, and they have defined amount of specific strain, and it has to be actually stated on the label. So those products would be probiotic.
Thank you so much for clarifying that, Dragana, because when you told me that, I was just shocked because I always thought that, having yogurt, I was also getting probiotics, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. And Dragana, I know you'll be doing a whole session for us on probiotics specifically, right? And you'll be talking about all of this. Dragana, what are you most looking forward to in the upcoming sessions on gut logic?
So again, first of all, I had so much fun contributing the introduction and some parts of the book, the Gut Logic book, and I was so glad that Graham actually started that initiative, which is so needed. And then I love to talk about probiotics. I think there's a huge potential if they are used appropriately to improve, overall health, to public health, basically, and also for people that do not need probiotics, to save them some money, to stop them from wasting money and taking something they don't need. And again, because I like to talk about it, I think my session will probably last 2 hours or longer. So you have to stop me talking because I definitely love to talk. And you mentioned earlier the AEProBio website. AEProBio stands for Alliance for Education on Probiotics. Basically, that's kind of a nonprofit association or organization of people that are interested and invested in research and educating healthcare professionals and public on probiotics. We have an expert review board that is actually involved in preparing and reviewing data that is published in a clinical guide. But we also have scientific advisory committee that is different kinds of academics, researchers, clinicians that really have keen interest in appropriate use of probiotics and making them part of our options in therapy for helping improve health and lives. So definitely something that we continue working on and collaborating with everybody that actually is invested in evidence-based education. And as I say, as a pharmacist, we are sticklers for evidence.
We definitely are sticklers for evidence. And so these sessions will all be evidence based. There's going to be no fluff here. We're not going to try to sell you any products, which is really what is happening online a lot. And we, as pharmacists, we also see so much money spent on supplements, many supplements that don't even get taken sometimes, because we know this when we do a medication review. We ask you to bring in all of your supplements and things are expiring. And, I think that, probiotics, there's definitely a place for this. And these sessions are not sponsored in any way by any probiotic company or anything like that, right? There's definitely a place for them. But again, the strain and the indication are really, really important. And I think that's what you're speaking to, Dragana, and then just the need for the evidence. And so AEProBio has really helped to fill that gap where that information really wasn't there before. So I wanted to let you know about our next session. So our next session will be next Saturday at the same time, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Graham McKenzie, and so he's the author again of Gut Logic, and myself will be presenting next week. We're going to be going over the topics of gut health and cholesterol, gut health and weight loss, fermented foods, and also a high fiber diet and how that can impact your gut microbiome. So I told you at the beginning of this session, let me just check here, that someone will be receiving a free book. Someone who leaves a comment will receive a free book. And we're going to do that at the end of every session. Graham has graciously offered to give a free book to the participants at the end of each session, one participant. So today, Michelle Blake apparently has left this comment. And Michelle, we will be giving you a free book of Gut Logic today. So if you can email me at friendlypharmacy5@gmail.com, or you can just go onto my YouTube page, we will send that book out to you. We'll get it to you. Michelle says, I'm looking forward to hearing about so many of these things. In particular, I'm looking forward to hearing about the brain-gut connection. That's from Michelle on YouTube. We're streaming live across, I think, about 5 or 6 different platforms today. So thank you very much, Michelle, for that comment. And we will definitely be talking about gut health and mental health and the gut-brain connection in these sessions. So stay tuned, and there will be answers to all of your questions. So thank you so much for joining us today. That wraps up our first session. Graham or Dragan, to add, or we'll see you in the next session, I guess.
Yeah, thanks for your work on this, and thanks for your contributions, both of you.
Thank you, and I'm looking forward to next sessions. And I'm sure we'll have more questions and have time to answer them all. So coming back.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for joining us today. Hope to see you again next week. Take care.